The Olympics is a great ceremony. I'll never forget when it came to London. It was probably the best 2 weeks to live in London. It's certainly been downhill ever since. But the 2032 Olympics, we're facing serious challenges, and fewer cities want the Games. When Brisbane was awarded the 2032 Olympics, the International Olympic Committee pitched it as the start of a new era, an Olympics that would be cheaper, more sustainable, and less politically toxic. But the challenges now gathering around the 2032 Games tell a very different story. They're the product of decades of cost overruns, political backlash, and public scepticism that have steadily eroded confidence in the whole Olympic model. To understand why Brisbane is under such pressure, we need to look at the financial and political legacies of the modern game. Sydney, Athens, London, Rio, Tokyo, Paris, and the looming questions surrounding Los Angeles. Each of these games has contributed to a global perception that hosting the Olympics is a risky, expensive, and often not worth the long-term cost. Sydney is often viewed as one of the best games. It was a success, but behind the smooth execution lay significant financial overruns. The final cost exceeded early projections by billions, and the long-term maintenance of Olympic parks became a persistent taxpayer obligation. While Sydney avoided the catastrophic decline seen in Athens or Rio, the financial reality contradicted the original promises of affordability. For Australians watching Brisbane's budget creep upward, the Sydney experience remains an important and unresolved reference point. Athens, the definitive warning. Athens is a cautionary tale that reshaped global attitudes towards the Olympics. The game's final cost far exceeded forecasts. Many of the venues fell into disuse shortly afterwards. While Greece's financial crisis stemmed from many factors, the Olympics became a powerful symbol of government overspending. Athens is the example that haunts every bid. It proved that the Olympics could actively damage a country's fiscal stability. Now, London 2012 was regeneration at premium. London successfully delivered a well-managed Olympics, revitalised East London, and avoided most white elephant venues. But even a well-run Games proves extremely expensive. The financial cost was more than double the initial forecast due to security, redevelopment, and contingency. London demonstrated that even success costs more than promise, a pattern that voters now recognise with increasing scepticism. Rio was a legacy in ruins. Rio presented itself. Brazil was a nation on the rise, a new economic power hosting a world event. Within years, its venues were deteriorating, its public finances strained, and its political landscape in turmoil. Facilities fell into disuse, and the promised legacies failed to materialise. Rio became the modern symbol of failed Olympic planning, reinforcing the fear that the Games often leave behind debt, disrepair, and disappointed communities. Tokyo, where they were unlucky, they had the pandemic price tag. Tokyo deserves particular attention because its challenges were unlike any previous Olympics and very costly. The Games were delayed by a full year by COVID-19, forcing Japan to cover enormous additional expenses, renegotiated contracts, idle venues requiring maintenance, restructured logistics, expanded health and safety protocols, lost ticket revenues with empty stadiums. I thoroughly enjoyed the Tokyo Olympics, but what was billed as one of the most efficient and technologically superb Olympics became dramatically more expensive and clearly didn't bring the visitors that they expected it to. You could just say they were unlucky, but it sent a message to future hosts. Unpredictable global events can turn even the most carefully planned Olympics into a financial gamble. Paris, a sustainable vision, but still burdened by costs. They aimed to provide a modern Olympics that could be environmentally conscious, relatively low cost, and integrated into existing infrastructure. Yet Paris still faced rising security requirements, construction inflation, protest movements, and political arguments over funding. Even a lean Olympics, built on sustainable credentials, proved financially and socially taxing. And let's not say anything about the games themselves. The next is LA. And Los Angeles is one of the first Olympics I remember. It was a spectacle when I was a kid. With only 2 cities in the running, it was gifted to them for 2028. And they position themselves as a low-risk host using existing venues and corporate partnerships. But inflationary pressure, security costs, and shifting public expectations are already straining the budget. If a city with minimal new construction requirements is feeling the financial heat, the implications for Brisbane, where multiple major venues are still in flux, are obvious. Cities are no longer competing to host the Olympics. The string of games from Athens onwards has reshaped the global political environment. Cities are having increasingly reluctant to bid, with near-universal pattern of cost overruns, rising security expenses, displacement of residents and local disruption, environmental impact, long-term maintenance costs, doubts about whether promised legacies ever materialise. During bidding cycles for 2022 and 2024, most candidate cities just withdrew due to public opposition. By the time Brisbane was selected for 2032, the IOC had replaced competition with a dialogue model, not because it wanted to modernise the process. Governing bodies never do that, do they? But because it had run out of willing contenders. The shrinking pool of host cities is a symptom of a broader crisis. Brisbane was meant to represent a new chapter, a regional Olympic, with shared venues and restrained costs. Instead, it finds itself entangled in just the same problems its predecessors faced: rising and shifting costs. Stadium plans have changed repeatedly, triggering political debates, venue redesigns, and budget escalations. Queensland voters are going to have to pay for this. Post-pandemic inflation, labour shortages, and supply chain difficulties have raised the cost of every major infrastructure project. Polling shows that enthusiasm is slipping. Many residents question the priorities. Why spend billions on stadium upgrades when pressures on housing, healthcare and transport are mounting? South East Queensland's spread out venue plan reduces central construction, but greatly increases logistical complexity. Previous Olympics have claimed they'd pay for themselves through growth, tourism or regeneration. But modern research rarely supports these claims. Brisbane now has to justify the enterprise in a more sceptical era. This is a systemic crisis. It's not just Brisbane. I'm sure they'll do a great job. But the Olympic movement's at a crossroads. Three forces are undermining the long-term viability of the game. Escalating global costs make the budget control nearly impossible. Falling political trust fueled by decades of overspending and empty legacy promises, and a scarcity of willing hosts, leaves the IOC increasingly dependent on cities that are politically insulated, already have heavy investment. Unless the IOC significantly reforms these structures, the game's downward trend from a number of willing hosts will continue to dwindle. Brisbane Olympics is more than just an event. Most of us aren't even thinking about it yet. It's a referendum on whether the Olympic movement can adapt to the realities of the 21st century. Tokyo showed that even the most modern, well-organised games can just be upended by global shocks. Paris showed that sustainability isn't a cure for cost pressures. London showed that success is expensive. We're still paying for it. I wouldn't say it was a bad decision, though. Rio and Athens showed that bad outcomes, that winning a bid isn't the end of all problems. If it succeeds, the Olympics will gain credibility. If it fails, the question becomes unavoidable. Can the Olympic model survive in its current form? Now, if you got this far, like and subscribe. come back for more thoughts on varied geopolitical concerns. It costs you nothing, but it really does help us.